1040s or any of these tax returns, they got things you sign off on, things you say you're going to do. And if you don't do them or you're not telling the truth according to us, we're going to get you. All right, let's pull this up right here. Shit. Can y'all see that? 1040.
Page 2.
Yeah, page 2. This is a 1040 typical tax return. It's a U.S. individual income tax return. So this form is specifically for a U.S. individual. So let me ask you in here, y'all, who's a U.S. individual in this meeting? Somebody can somebody tell me if they're a U.S. individual? Nobody's
No.
a U.S. individual?
No.
Okay, so if you fill this out, you're saying you're a U.S. individual. And because you're saying you're a U.S. individual, you agree that to the amounts you put, any numbers you put on here, you're certifying that they're true and correct. And if they're not true and correct, if you deceive, lie, or anything, they say right here. I'm trying to highlight, but they ain't trying to let me highlight. There you go. That under penalties of perjury, I declare that I have examined this return and accompanying schedules and statements, and to the best of my knowledge and belief, they are true, correct, and complete. So, what does under penalties of perjury mean? Let's look it up. Under penalty perjury. Let's go meaning. Signed under penalty of perjury is a legal declaration stating that the contents of a written document are true to the best of the signer's knowledge and that the signer will face criminal charges for perjury if the statement is proven false. It serves as an unsworn alternative to taking an oath in court or before an official, allowing for the same legal weight to be given to the declaration. The declaration is often printed on forms, includes a statement like, I declare under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States that the foregoing is true and correct. So, of course, when I teach you guys to sign, you sign under the laws of the United States of America, not United States, because you're signing without the United States. You see? But so that means anything you do with that form, you're saying, hey, you can get me if you think I lied. You could charge me with a crime. So even if someone prepared the tax return, because you're saying that you read it, it don't matter who did it, you're still responsible for whatever happens. Okay? So basically, when you sign, they put the unsworn declaration. Let's pull up the unsworn declaration. Because in the unsworn, it says if executed without the United States, you say I declare or certify or state under penalties of perjury under the laws of the United States of America. But if it's in the United States, you'll say, if executed, I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. So look at that. Look at that. See how they got you? See how they got you? Because this is saying, when you say it this way, you're signing it under penalty of perjury within the United States. Let me show you again. They put the unsworn declaration in the tax return, in any of their documents, that you're signing within the United States. They put the number 2 on. So if you're going to actually do a tax return, I would alter that part and change it to without the United States if you're going to do one. But once again, the 1040 is for a U.S. individual. It didn't say individual. It says U.S., a United States individual. So you haven't done it for 10 years, most likely they're not going to bother you because you have not volunteered to be in that system for 10 years. Usually, if you don't do a tax return, they usually come after you within 3 to 5 years. I've known people who haven't done a tax return 20 plus years, no problems. More people get in problem with doing taxes is because they did the tax return than they do not doing it. Because you never agreed or contracted with them under any penalties of perjury. So when they try to say, well, we need to assess you, we're going to do your tax return for you, and this is what you owe us, I didn't agree with that. Because ain't I supposed to be? So when they do an assessment, think about this. When they do an assessment on you, this here says that you examined it and you declare it's true. So when they try to do an assessment and you agree to it, you're agreeing that you know that's right. But if you don't agree to it, no, I don't owe anything. That's something you made up. And to be honest with you, they really don't know what your taxes are until you actually do them. Even if people are putting 1099s with your number on it, they really don't have a surefire way to know exactly what those numbers are because they all based on voluntary reporting. And what if somebody misses the digits and uses your number for some money that you never even earned? See all of the issues that's involved there? This is why disputing them and fighting them is the way to go, because they have the burden of proof to prove their case. You don't have to prove it for them. Say, listen, hey, okay, well, you said this, prove it. Show me in your records that that's true. And if you ever been in an assessment, they always their first line of question is to get you to agree that this happened. Oh, did you make money over here? Did you do this? Is this yours? You see them saying that? Oh, yeah, I did. I worked for them. And then you start talking. That's why you don't talk to them. All right. Any questions on that?
Yeah. So, I've crossed the 70 mark.
Right.
And, to be blindsided with, look, what about this here later on? I'm, up in age and have to go through a lot of rigmarole with the IRS. I
Like
just want
what specifically?
Well, I haven't
Or
dealt
is
with
this
this.
just an anticipation thing?
Yeah, just
Okay.
anticipating,
This is what I will say to you about anticipation. Stop anticipating the people to come bother you, because if you do, you putting that out there in the ether, in the universe, it's going to happen. You know you're a magnet for whatever you're thinking. You poking the bear when you thinking this might happen. Things that are seen come from the things that are unseen, meaning specifically, everything you're experiencing in your life right now is based off an idea you had previous. So stop thinking about them people. Think about something else. Something more pleasant. But I mean, it's good you got on the webinar, and now you'll have the tools just in case something happens. Because if they do come at you, all you got to do is hit them with this letter that I got right here. Let me share the screen. Let's share the screen. This is the new tax dispute letter. It's the affidavit and notice of dispute and alleged tax liability of alleged tax liability. So here it is. And if you notice, this one is claiming American Indian national status, which falls in line with the webinar that I just taught last week on claiming your indigenous status on your passport. I know Dax. So, what is a county deed? A lawful sworn declaration used to rebut or correct a presumption. We know that the government works off presumptions, right? They presume you to be a United States citizen. They presume you to be born in the United States. They make presumptions. And they did that by way of the 14th Amendment, born or naturalized into the United States. Restores the lawful record from which government derives. Presumption of consent, example documents, birth certificate, marriage license, passport, name in all caps.
What if one of America's biggest civil rights laws never actually said the word black? In 1968, Congress passed the Fair Housing Act, the so-called Civil Rights Act of 1968, to end discrimination in housing. A major win, at least on paper. But here's the twist. Read the text. You won't find a single mention of black or African American. The only group named directly, Indians. In the same year Dr. King was assassinated, America finally outlawed racial discrimination, but couldn't bring itself to say who the fight was for. Maybe equality was written into law, but not into words.
The Civil Rights Act of 1968 never said black, Negro, or African American, but that silence wasn't new. A century earlier, the reconstructed Constitution of Louisiana in 1868 stood as proof that people once labeled colored or Negro were lawmakers, judges, and citizens of the state of Louisiana.
Yet, as decades passed, something changed. The same people who once held legal recognition as Indians, freedmen, or Creoles were reclassified, renamed, and redefined.
By the 1900s, men like Pitchfork, Ben Tillman, made speeches and stated, "Then we had a constitutional convention convened which took the matter up calmly, deliberately, and avowedly with the purpose of disfranchising as many of them as we could under the 14th and 15th Amendments."
But what if that wasn't just racism? What if it was erasure? A rewriting of identity, stripping names and nations from a people already here.
Indian, colored, black, African American. Words changed, but the lineage remained.
It looks like history didn't just rename a people, it reclassified a nation.
What if the Civil Rights Act of 1968 didn't exclude Black Americans, but instead redefined who they truly were? Most people never notice it. The law never says Black, Negro, or African American. The only group it names is Indians. Strange? Maybe not. Some historians and researchers suggest those terms, Black, Colored, Negro, were social labels, not national identities. In older legal contexts, Indian didn't just mean native tribes. It sometimes referred to the original dark-skinned peoples of the Americas. So when Congress passed the 1968 Act, were they quietly acknowledging a deeper truth? That the people called Black were already included under the nation's first inhabitants? Maybe the Civil Rights Act didn't ignore them. Maybe it remembered who they really were.
My mic's not unmuted. Peace, what's up? It's Truth Tuesday with your host, Akeem. 10 years in the running, same show, same time, every Tuesday for the last 10 years. It is December the 9th, 2025. You only have, about 21 days left to the month. And we'll be celebrating New Year. I most likely will not be doing a formal New Year's ritual, but I will be sending out an email for all of you guys who want to do it privately in your homes, because I am planning something for that day. So, and I don't think I'll be back in time to facilitate that. But we will be doing a New Year's ritual for the actual spring equinox. That we will be doing for sure. So, because we know this is a corporate deal, you know how that goes. All right, so peace to everybody. I got in the chat a couple of people. Peace, Rico, A White. Peace back to you and your family. I hope everybody's doing good. Thanks for tuning in. So I've been posting videos about the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which was a monumental, supposedly a monumental milestone for people of color, Blacks, African American, Negro, whatever you want to call it, the titles they were given. And people celebrated. It was, and you had your religious leaders, your so-called civil rights activists promoting this bill, this legislation. They made a really big deal up until this date. But what has been the one message that I've always taught or spoke on? What's that one message I told you guys to do, which most people don't like doing? Most people like to watch videos, hear people talk. Why is that? Because that's how we're programmed. We're programmed to sit in front of a person. They tell us what the truth is, right? From, you went to public education, and you had this teacher in front of a room teaching big classrooms full of students, 20 plus students at times, sometimes 30. I know I grew up in New York. We had huge classes, one teacher managing 20 to 30 students at a time, which is very hard to do. To effectively manage anyone, you can only 10 to 15. After that, you need someone to help you supervise that. You need an assistant. to help. So the teacher is indoctrinating you. Why does the teacher doesn't mean to indoctrinate you? Teachers are just want to, most people who go into the education system really want to make a difference. That's the way I see it, right? But they are held captive by the educational standards. Meaning if they want to keep their job, they have to teach what the curriculum or what the Board of Education says is the norm, what they, the regimen that they have to give out. And I know when I was in school, I remember clearly being taught that the Indians were savages. They wore these barely anything clothes and they run around shooting arrows while the white man had the guns and the gunpowder. You see, they made you believe that these people were not educated. They were basically dumb. And they used to say, oh, how now and all of this nonsense. And it made the white man look extremely educated. So through that programming, through Hollywood, through politics, through your churches, we adopted a narrative of what Native Americans look like and how they behaved. And seeing that even in their textbooks, they talked about treaties, but they never kept any of them. So if we know that these people are liars, why would we trust that anything they got in these history books is the truth? The even sadder part, the sadder thing is when I tried to talk to people that look like myself about this, they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm making this up. So if the Civil Rights Bill was, y'all remember that. I grew up during that. Well, I was a kid. I was born in 1969. The bill came out in 1968. So prior to that, there was a lot of marching. That same year, I believe Martin Luther King was assassinated after the bill came out. So that was a distraction in itself, right? People stopped reading the actual bill and what it had to say. And even Martin Luther King, in his speech, he said clearly that he believed he integrated his people into a burning building. And he even alluded to that, wait a minute, maybe we were the original. We were always here. And that was after his trip to Mecca, where him and Malcolm X met up in Mecca or traveled to Mecca. So seeing all of this, how come this big Civil Rights Act bill does not mention the very people that it was supposed to be created for? But it specifically mentions Indians and Indian tribes. I know some of y'all are surprised. Wait a minute. The Civil Rights Act was about giving black folks equal opportunity. But the very people who are supposed to be written for, they're not mentioned in there. How come? How come? How come? How now, brown cow? How come? See, you had civil rights leaders like Adam Clayton Powell, who was a big proponent of that, made a big deal out of it, made sellout deals. to even get it to go on. If you want to see like kind of what was going on, there's a series called The Godfather of Harlem, and it is written around the Godfather of Harlem, but in there it shows his interactions with people like Adam Clayton Powell, Malcolm X, Prophet Muhammad, the Nation of Islam, the Fruit of Islam, the Italian gangs. Watch it. It's a good series. It's an education series and it's a gangster movie. I mean, gangster series. Very good. I think it's 3 or 4 seasons, and it's on Hulu. But back to the 1968 Civil Rights Act. Y'all know you had guys like Jesse Jackson. Who's the other guy? Al Sharpton, and many other so-called civil rights proponents, activists. This bill was the holy grail for us. But it doesn't mention anything, but it specifically mentions Indians, and they got pages and pages of rules when it comes to them. I'm perplexed. Why? Right? So let's I made some notes. The Civil Rights Acts don't use the words black, Negro, colored, African American in the operative protections. They use neutral categories like race and color. And pretty soon I'm going to pull up the Civil Rights Act and show it on my screen. And I'm going to let you see it for yourself. Because I'm gonna do a Control F to see if those words in, let you see. Matter of fact, let me do that right now. Let me go ahead and get that out of the way. Let me go ahead and get it out of the way. Let me share my screen. All right. So I got my Control F up, and I'm going to type in black. This is a PDF document of the Civil Rights Act. Let me go to the beginning. Civil Rights Act of 1968. I'm going to put in black, and then I'm going to hit enter. 0. Let's put African. 0. How about African American? At that time, they wasn't using that term, so I'll give this one a pass. I already know it because we didn't start using that until Jesse Jackson. He started using it. That's not in there. Negro. 0. Oh, let's put Indian. Indian is mentioned in this bill 135 times. That word is in this bill 135 times. Can y'all see that? Can y'all see it? 135 times. So a bill that's supposed to be designed for black folks, Negroes, colored, because those are the big terms at that time, that is designed for them, doesn't even mention them. This is what the media promoted. You know, this is at the time Muhammad Ali was coming up. And he had to spend a little time in jail because he refused to go into the military. But a bill that is supposed to be for the equality of people of color, black folks, African Americans, it don't even mention them. What's wrong with that picture? Now, those little clips I showed that I created, those are my clips. I created those clips. It kind of alluded to where I'm going. Not kind of, it did. See, our problem as a people, we allow people to define us. In another decade, they'll probably be calling you something different. We're so crazy, we allow people to define out who we are without doing our own research. I get it. You went to public education and they gave you a false sense of your own identity. I get that. I see that. But at some point, you got to start using your common sense and start saying some of this stuff doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't. When you look at documents like the 1868 Reconstructed Constitution, you look at speeches like the Pitchfork Ben Tillman that talks about disenfranchising people of color under the 14th and 15th Amendment. And that's on a congressional record. That was spoken at a congressional hearing or meeting. When a constitutional convention was made in order to disenfranchise you. And I'll break that down in a minute. What I mean when I say disenfranchise. Because see, you got to remember how the government operates. They operate backwards, meaning what you think normally is the opposite of that. They got you looking in one direction while they're operating in another direction. And you have to pay attention to every little detail. Now, I'm going to say something else, though. I'm going to give y'all, even on the application, they say American Indian, right? Native American. But this bill doesn't have that word in here. It don't even have the word American in here. Right? I'll go back to the document. It don't have, let's see, native. Let's see, maybe native might be in there. It's in there 3 times under alternative. So it's not really in there, right? So we already know American is not in there. It is under American National Standard 1 time. That's it. And I'm going to stop right there. I'm not going to go any further and elaborate. I'm going to let your common sense kick in on that. Okay? Let's go back. Let's put Indian back in. 135 times, people. 100, starting with the second page of this document, Rights of Indians. Rights of Indians. But let me go back to my document here. So here how it breaks down on the Civil Rights Act. Major Federal Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act of 1860 key language, all persons born in the United States. See, they had a civil rights in 1866, and that was all persons born in the United States are hereby declared citizens of the United States. And such citizens of every race, color shall have the same right as enjoyed by white citizens. No black, Negro, colored, or African American in the text, just race, color, white citizens. They labeled white citizens and Indians not taxed. Again, in this 1866 document, they mentioned white citizens and Indians not taxed. There was a clear distinction. Everything else was generalized, just you can't be discriminated by race and color. Or they would declare them citizens. Civil Rights Act of 1875 guarantees equal enjoyment of accommodation to citizens, every race and color, regardless of any previous condition of servitude. So I went all the way back to the very first Civil Rights Act, right? 1866. Again, no specific label like Negro or Black in the statute itself. Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title II, 6, 7, etc. Repeated formula prohibits discrimination because of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The word Negro shows up in debates in the historical commentary, but not in the operative statutory language. Civil Rights Act of 1968, Fair Housing Act. Title 8 makes it unlawful to discriminate in housing because of race, color, religion, or national origin. Later amended to add sex, disability, familial status. Still no Black, Negro, colored, or African American by name. Indian Civil Rights Act of 1968, Title II of the 1968 Act, written specifically for Indian tribes and defines Indian tribe and Indians, but does not refer to Black, Negro, colored, African American. You see? It does not refer African American. It does not. So what does use the words colored or Negro? Older state level laws and so-called Black codes often use terms like persons of color, free persons of color, or Negroes. For example, in 1866, Texas law described as key to that state's civil rights framework talks about persons lately known as slaves and free persons of color. Legal scholarships and court cases discussing the Civil Rights Act will often say they were meant to protect Negroes or Black people, but that's commentary, not the wording of the act itself. Again, we're not getting specific laws that designate Black, Negro, African as having any type of civil rights or civil protections. Why this matters for your question. Federal civil rights acts are drafted in universal terms, all persons, every race and color, instead of naming one group. So when they create these laws, they're not really creating it for people of color, although they advertised it, they marketed it that way. But these laws can mean anybody. So were they really fighting for you? Or they was fighting for other people and you just happened to go along for the ride? But it was not specifically for you. I remember President Obama was interviewed, why haven't you made any legislations for Black people? And he sidestepped that question. He sidestepped it. When they asked Kamala Harris the same question, she sidestepped it. And I kind of know why they sidestepped it. I kind of know why. But I'm going to tell you in the end why they sidestepped it. Let me just finish going through this. The protected class is defined as race or color, which obviously includes people commonly called Black, African American, etc. But those specific labels aren't spelled out in the statutory text. So if you were asking Olivia, is there a civil rights act that actually says the words Black, Negro, color, or African American in its protections? The practical answer is no. The major federal civil rights acts do not use these specific labels. They rely on broader terms like race and color. If you so here's the let me see. Look at my chart here. I created a diagram. Let me go here to it. So, side by side, Civil Rights Act of 1866, all persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are declared to be citizens. So that means Indians are not citizens of the United States, according to the 1866 Civil Rights. Every race and color compares to white citizens. That's that. Names Indian not taxed and white citizens explicitly. See, when they really want to give clarity to something, they name them. But when it comes to those Black African American titles, they just say race, color. That's it. But they market it to you as if it was for you. And they got you because, Adam Clayton Powell was a preacher, right? So they got guys like him to preach from his pulpit. This is good for them. And the people trusted them and thought they were getting something all their own. This is for us. The NAACP and the NAACP, same thing. Oh, this is for you. And it's not for you. It's for everybody. That's why the violence against people of color, Black folks as we call them, continue because there was no specific law to protect you like they had for Indians and white people. I can continue going down the line, but y'all get my message, right? So, y'all know I've been teaching for a very long time that who we're calling Black African American are the Indians of this land, are the natives, are the American Indian. So, if that is the case, what has been happening, the government did provide protections for you. They did. But they did it deceitfully. Because while they were creating this legislation, they were miseducating you in the public school system as to you being Black African American. Yet that's the only time you heard it while you were in school on their little application. Are you Black? African American later on, that school went on. They got you to check off who you were. But why did you check it off? Because someone called you this. You accepted it. But it's nowhere in any documented legislature that these titles or this even exist. They only label what was real in the codes. And Indian is real and white is real. And let me help you understand that white doesn't mean a skin color. It's either you were white or you were Indian. And when they made you believe that white was what we believe is white people today. Do I need to break out the 1828 Webster Dictionary? White was a political status. It was never meant to be a complexion. And I'll get into that into another lesson on that when I have that all broken down and so I can read it off. So when you had Obama, you had Kamala Harris, and all the other ones sidestepping that question. How come you never made it? They didn't answer it because they couldn't answer it for one reason, because it would show the lie. Because if they were being truthful, well, we didn't need to make a rule, a special legislation for those people because they don't exist. It's made up. It's no definition of black, colored anywhere in the legislation. If you go look in any legislation and say divine black, divine colored, divine African American, you will not find it. You only hear it on TV. You only hear it coming out your church's mouth. You only hear it or you see it on a state document where it wants you to ask you, and they put in writing the labels. And you certify that by your own hand. They write that in. That's not legislation. That's just the state creating a document for you to fill out to apply for a driver's license or any other right privilege you're trying to get. But that's not legislation. When you go to the actual titles of all laws, you will not find those titles. You will not find the title black citizens. You'll find white citizens. 1866 Civil Rights Act. Because white citizens wasn't a color. It was the status of a people. And people who had dark skin could be called a white citizen. Right? So when Obama and them all, they sidestepped the question because they couldn't reveal they had to go on to something else. Because if you are the true people of this land, which I know you to be, they already made the rules for you because they called you Indian, not tax. In the Civil Rights Act, Indian. There it was. It was right there in our face the whole time. But because you were misdirected by sleight of hand, by sleight of words, by sleight of videos, sleight of big books, textbooks. If you haven't figured out that textbooks are fiction, works of fiction, that people were hired to give a narrative of what they wanted everyone to believe for bigger purpose. If you got all of the regular folks who go get jobs at odds with each other, they will never see the game that's being played on them. And what is the game? The game is for your labor. That's the game. The game is to get you to convince yourself that it is a good idea to go clock in and clock out on somebody's job every day and do shit you don't really want to do every day to survive. It's called being responsible by definition of capitalism. You're being a responsible citizen to go clock in every day to make the guy who created the company rich. While his families are going on lavish vacations, you sitting there budgeting for your vacations. Where his family has the unlimited resources to go eat wherever they want to go, you're checking your bank account in order to decide whether you want to eat out or not. That's the game. And the game wasn't really about color. It was really about gaining as many factory workers as they can. They just use racial division as the tool to get people to fall in line. Get you look at that white boy over there. Look at that nigga. Those things. See, once you stand outside of the game, you see how it's being played every day. The hardest people to see how the get to see they're being played is the people that are the playing piece. Let me say it again. The playing piece for the game. Because that's all you are. It's real live Monopoly. That's why Monopoly, they have different functions. They have a thimble. They have the guy that looks rich. They have the car. It's those particular games are really about your life. So there's no need to go looking for any more legislation for your protection. The legislation is there. You just got to put aside what they told you in those lying-ass textbooks that promoted you as being from Africa, be on some damn slave ship, and got you over there, which is, just the logistics of that is nearly impossible to bring all your people here by the amount of people that they said came here. And in my experience, just in my experience, the people that are in power will do anything to stay in power. That means lie, pit you against each other just to keep you from waking up to the truth. Because the reason why they do that, because they were afraid that they will lose power, because the majority are the regular folks. So the guys in charge always have to manipulate your mind. This is nothing new. This is not a new strategy. This is old. It's just new rhetoric, new way topics that they talk about. See, here's a dumbass in the comments. Why would it have to exactly specify anyone? See, that's a dumb comment. See. USA is a white Protestant English-speaking nation. Let me tell you something, dumbass. USA is not a white Protestant English-speaking nation. Okay? When the settlers even came over here, a lot of them didn't even speak English. They were speaking Dutch, Spaniards. Okay? There was a lot of people before. See, that's the problem with this education system. They make white power structures think that they're the end all, beginning, ending. And they are not. Y'all the last people to even get educated. I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me. It's not. Protestant ideals didn't come here until the 13 colonies got here. That's how that started. But as a whole, you want to know the dominant religion of this country? You want to know? You really want to know? It's the very religion that Christianity is always fighting against. Muslim. There's more Muslims in this world than it is Christians. And Muslim was the dominant religion of the Americas before the settlers got here. Y'all, you want to test me on that? See, that's what I'm saying. I don't care if you don't like it. You know what? See, people like that say, ask me dumb questions, they get banned. Bye. Get the hell up out of here. They see us as dead. This way, yeah. Somebody put, they see us as dead. Why we getting killed? No, yeah, because you're getting treated like that because of what you're picking, the titles you choose to pick, and you're getting treated like that because you're not studying and reading stuff. You're letting someone dictate where you need to go look for information and find the truth. So he said that that's not how America works. LOL. Somebody said, look how Indian is styled. Yeah, I noticed that. I'm not elaborating on none of that because I got too many eavesdroppers that try to take my information and use it and act like they the ones who came up with the idea. Why would they define anyone? They define it. First of all, that was a dumb question because they were defining people in the laws. They were given definitions of this and that. Why would you even create a bill in 1968 when black folks were the ones, as they titled them, was the ones who were getting hosed down, dog sicked on them in the marches? So why did the Indians have to have such civil rights in the same bill? They got specific legislation designed for them. The colonies were Protestant. The colonies, 13, very small little clans that built up over the years. Americas, y'all weren't even from the Americas. What are you talking about, bro? Whoever that was. See, this is the problem with the American education system. You got people speaking like they know shit, and they don't know shit from apple butter. I already told you, January 1, master teacher mode. Again, I'm probably, not probably, I am. Just like I handled that idiot who came in my chat, that's how I'm handling shit from here on out, right now. But anyway, y'all got the point. Obama, Kamala Harris, and all them other shysters didn't have to make a civil rights bill for you because they already made it when they defined Indian rights. Okay, there was no need for it. It's right there. It's been in our face the whole time. When Dred Scott tried to claim he was an American citizen or a U.S. citizen, said, no, you don't have any rights as a U.S. citizen. But he did have rights under another title. He was just looking in the wrong direction. And I showed you Jackie, I forget her last name. Right, Jackie Wright knew who the hell she was, and she was like, I ain't none of that. And won. See, 3 to 4 generations ago, our grandparents wasn't sitting there calling themselves none of that black. They knew who they was. I watched a video of a woman in North Carolina said, no, we were always known as Indians. All this black, I don't know. That just started coming up. But it's our fault because we sent them to the indoctrination kids. We sent the kids to be reprogrammed and indoctrinated into the lies. So we have to take responsibility for that. But with that being said, I gave y'all enough information. It's 8 o'clock. Go back and listen to the show if you missed something. Or go read those Civil Rights Acts. All right? He said, what do you do about doing something for black people? Yeah, that's what I mentioned that earlier. He didn't have to because his ass knew the truth. What am I doing something when they already got something? They got something better than anything I could do for them. And with that being said, peace.
The Civil Rights Act of 1968 never said black, Negro, or African American, But that silence wasn't new. A century earlier, the reconstructed Constitution of Louisiana in 1868 stood as proof that people once labeled colored or Negro were lawmakers, judges, and citizens of the state of Louisiana.
Yet, as decades passed, something changed. The same people who once held legal recognition as Indians, freedmen, or Creoles were reclassified, renamed, and redefined.
By the 1900s, men like Pitchfork, Ben Tillman, made speeches and stated, "Then we had a constitutional convention convened which took the matter up calmly, deliberately, and avowedly with the purpose of disfranchising as many of them as we could under the 14th and 15th Amendments."
But what if that wasn't just racism? What if it was erasure? A rewriting of identity, stripping names and nations from a people already here.
Indian, colored, black, African American. Words changed, but the lineage remained.
It looks like history didn't just rename a people. It reclassified a nation,